Thomas's branch line feels old, which is really impressive because we only learn about it when Thomas gets there. And there's a mine and a quarry down there. But the mine is almost abandoned, and the quarry is shunted by the branchline engines. The only branchline engine we know of until Toby arrives, though, is Thomas. The branchline didn't fall out of the sky, and there's no way it was abandoned for very long because Thomas just steps right into it. If, like in the Railway series, it was run by coffee pots, how many do you think Thomas replaced? He has to be 3 or 4 times as strong as Glenn and at least twice as fast. Did he just walk in there and wipe out an entire class of locomotive? And only Glenn is ever seen in the CGI era, and there's no conversation about his dead family. You know, if they needed Thomas to run that line, Glenn was never going to be able to keep it up alone. To me, that implies even in the CGI series, there were more coffee pots, and I do believe the other engines would have been coffee pots, because it's likely that the most reliable engine would be the last. A more conventional locomotive would almost certainly beat Glenn out by a wide margin. This also means the Farquhar branch somehow made it into the 1920s without a permanent conventional steam locomotive in both the CGI era and the model series. How? At some point before then, it would have been more financially viable to scrap a few coffee pots and buy an old DX Goods or something. Unless the branch line was very small and undergoing an expansion when they got Thomas at least. And that makes sense. A new route to Knapford Harbor maybe. But then why not have the coffee pots run the tramway and quarry still? Instead, they were all withdrawn, and Thomas picked up all the work. I understand that there are a few reasons, of course, but as long as I've been able to understand it, I've always found it eerie that Thomas alone replaced an entire class of locomotive. By the time we see Edward's branch line as an actual branch line, the world doesn't feel as empty as it did in Season 1, so it doesn't feel as wrong as Thomas's branch did to me. I like the episodes on Thomas's line, the stories are cute, the scenery's great, but it still feels a little bit eerie to me when I think about the history, which I like my history, so I think about it a lot. This little blue murderer. Okay, he didn't cut them up himself, he just sent them all for scrap is all. I'll be back in a week.